Hi, I'm Maggie.
And I'm Marin, and you're listening to
Girlhood Movie Database.
a podcast where we deconstruct and muse on depictions of girlhood in film, literature, and other media.
A feminist celebration of pop culture, the audacity of youth, and the ways we grow away from and into our bodies, beliefs, and dreams for ourselves and each other.
And today we are discussing
Troop Beverly Hills.
now would be the perfect place for me to do the little chant they do at the end of the movie,
Oh,
but I don't
yeah.
remember it.
Beverly Hills, what a thrill. That one?
Yes. Or the song they sing when they're trying to sell cookies, the Cookie Time song.
Oh, that's intense.
That scene is so good though.
Cheap even at twice the price or whatever that line is.
We're talking about a movie that was a classic in my childhood, just in that it was like a staple for a year. I watched it a lot. Troop Beverly Hills, directed by some dude named Jeff Canoe. No disrespect to you, Jeff, but you directed a bunch of movies I had never heard of before, with the exception of Revenge of the Nerds, which I know is a movie
no.
maybe people still watch. I don't know. That was his first movie. And then he directed this, and then he directed a bunch of stuff I'd never heard of. Have you seen Revenge of the Nerds?
Yes,
Oh, you have?
definitely.
Is it bad?
It is like just very misogynistic.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I meant when I said bad. Maybe
Yeah.
there are elements to it that are funny, but like,
I mean, I'd have to watch it again to remember, but the misogyny is so overarching. It's hard to parse out any moments of.
yeah. I mean, it was just, I don't know if this is true of Revenge of the Nerds, but that era of like male centric comedy, I kind of just assume there's probably a date rape scene in it, or at least a scene of extreme sexual harassment. I just assume that until proven otherwise.
That's a very fair assumption.
Like 16 Candles. I remember watching that as a child and being like, oh, that she was not. No. So I don't know. Anyways.
It's funny that you bring up 16 Candles because I actually, when I think back on scenes from Revenge of the Nerds, I often will conflate. Not that I'm like constantly thinking about that movie, but as we were talking, I was trying to think about a specific scene, and I was like, oh no, that was 16 Candles. So you were totally like spot on in your assumptions about that genre.
Yeah, it's just woof. Big woof. That didn't make sense. Okay. True Beverly Hills was written by Pamela Norris and Margaret Oberman, who were both writers on Saturday Night Live. Pamela Norris was also a producer of the sitcom Designing Women, which I have never watched, but Jean Smart is in it, and I'm currently watching Hacks, which stars Jean Smart, and she is phenomenal in it, and that show is also really good. So this movie was released March 24, 1989, and for the poster tagline, I have two because this was the 80s and we were going wild when it came to poster taglines. I've noticed this. If you look up the original poster taglines for 80s movies, they're like paragraphs long and they're really intense and kind of confusing sometimes. So I'm going to read you the theatrical poster. And then I also found a tagline that was on the VHS case that was different than the theatrical poster. Okay, here's the theatrical poster tagline. She's hilarious. She's captivating. She's wonderful. She's a Beverly Hills babe in the woods, and the woods are wild with laughter.
What? I actually love it, but it sounds like something I would write. It sounds like it's satirizing itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's meaning to do that.
I don't think so either.
I love it for like what it is. I like sort of like tongue-in-cheek type things, but I don't think it's self-aware, but I like it anyway.
Yeah, it's fun. And it's like, she's hilarious! Exclamation point. She's captivating! Exclamation point. She's wonderful! Exclamation point. She's a Beverly Hill babe in the woods. and the woods are wild with laughter. And then there's a period after woods, and then the next sentence starts with and.
I love it.
Grammatically, a lot of thought went into this tagline with regard to its punctuation, and that is also fascinating to me. Oh, to be a person who got paid to come up with taglines in the 1980s. I would have loved that life. Okay. Are you ready for the other one?
Yeah.
So if you walked into your local Family Video and got the VHS of True Beverly Hills, or maybe I don't know if this was the VHS cover or if it was a poster advertising that the movie was now available on VHS. But the poster where I saw this tagline had something to do with VHS. The Wilderness Girls motto: be kind to small animals, always put out campfires, and when in doubt, charge it.
Round of applause. I still love it. It's so ridiculous.
I love it too. I think I love that one more than the first one. Because there are a lot of jokes in this movie that are like, oh, all they know how to do is go shopping. But I found it really entertaining to watch them go shopping. I don't know. I mean, is this tagline technically encouraging people to go into credit card debt? Maybe. But
I mean, she learns a lesson in the end.
Yeah. And actually, I don't think she's in debt. It's just
she's rich.
She's rich. The issue isn't that she is going into debt in order to buy the fine things that she wants. It's just that she goes shopping a lot and doesn't seem to do much else with her life, according to her ex-husband. That's like what the problem is. We have a log line that Maggie's going to read for us.
All right. A Beverly Hills housewife in the middle of a divorce tries to find focus in her life by taking over her daughter's Wilderness Girls troupe. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty straightforward, that is what's happening. I'm sorry, I'm looking back at the taglines again.
Yes, please do.
Because I love it. She's a Beverly Hills babe in the woods, and the woods are wild with laughter. It's lyrical. That's
exactly.
What I am.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I'm liking about it. Yeah.
Okay, I am going to provide a synopsis for True Beverly Hills. I didn't write one down because I was tired this week, but I think I can do it. I might call on you to help me, but I think I can do it. So True Beverly Hills is about a woman named Phyllis Neffler, who is played by Shelley Long of Cheers fame. And she is this rich woman. She lives in Beverly Hills. She's got lots of rich friends. She has a daughter, Hannah, and she's currently going through a divorce with her husband, Ned the Muffler Man, who's got rich from his muffler business. And it seems that like the main point of contention in their marriage and divorce is that she goes shopping a lot and that bothers him, even though, like we mentioned earlier, it doesn't seem like she's going into debt or being necessarily irresponsible with their money. Their daughter is well taken care of and everything. So I don't know. But they're in the middle of this divorce. She's going shopping to like spite him. And we learn that their daughter, who is 11, I believe, 11 or 12, her name is Hannah. She is part of the outdoor team building program called Wilderness Girls, which is basically analogous to Girl Scouts. And she's part of the Beverly Hills troupe. And we see at the beginning of the movie that some of the senior members of the Wilderness Girls organization are debating whether or not this troupe should even exist anymore because it's gotten so small and like they don't really do activities to earn patches. They don't participate in selling cookies. So like, what is the value of this troupe? But Phyllis, in an attempt to find something new in her life, has applied to become the troupe leader of her daughter's Wilderness Girls troupe. And so she gets accepted. She starts as their leader. And then basically what ensues is kind of like, I would call it almost a screwball like comedy of errors where she tries to take the girls into the wilderness to do a camping trip, for example, and then it rains and chaos ensues. And she's like, actually, let's just go to the Beverly Hills Hotel because everyone else in this troupe is also very wealthy. And the troop is sort of the butt of the joke with the other troops in their region. And one of the other troops called the Red Feathers, which are from Culver City, the mom is like very negative about the Beverly Hills troop, and she's like, we should get rid of them. She's like, Phyllis Neffler, we can't trust her, da 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 da. So she, in various ways, tries to sabotage their troop's success. But eventually, Phyllis really starts to get the hang of being a troop leader. She finds other ways to get the girls involved in their community in ways that like make sense to them as Beverly Hills people, I guess would be the way to put it. She is really active in like getting them to sell cookies, and if they sell enough cookies, then they get to participate in the final like summer jamboree, which is like how would you describe what the jamboree is? It's like a competition where the different troops go off into the woods and they have to navigate through a trail, and then the first one like to the end wins, basically. It's pretty episodic, so it's about Phyllis like leading these girls on these adventures, all of them coming into their own. Each individual girl, like we get glimpses into her character and things that she's going through. And so we see the ways that Phyllis is mentoring these girls. We see the ways that Velda, the mean lady from the other troop, is trying to foil all her success. And at the end of the movie, Troop Beverly Hills wins the jamboree. And so they have proven themselves to be full of like grit and compassion and drive. And Phyllis's ex-husband decides that he wants to remarry her again because she finally proved herself to have follow through with the project. That was something that he complained about earlier in the movie. And everyone is happy at the end. Did I miss anything major?
I don't think so.
Okay.
That was great. That was a great
Thanks.
synopsis.
Thanks. I was flying by the seat of my wilderness girl khaki pants.
No, I think you
There.
got it. Yeah.
I don't know. If that didn't make sense, go read Wikipedia.
Or go watch it.
Or go watch this movie. Yeah. You had watched this movie as a child, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What would you like to share about your prior relationship to this movie?
I mean, I don't think I really have. It's just that I saw it,
Okay.
you know, when I was a kid, and I liked it. It wasn't something that I rewatched all the time, but I definitely saw it a couple times, and I was a Girl Scout, so I liked it. I could relate to it in that way. Even though as I was watching it this time as an adult, I'm like, my Girl Scout troop, I don't remember us ever doing anything outside. We didn't go camping.
I think that's a common criticism levied against the Girl Scouts.
Really?
Because I remember I was also a Girl Scout, and we also didn't do much stuff outside. And I remember my mom was my assistant troop leader, and one day she heard me and a couple of my troop fellow Girl Scouts in my troop, who are also my classmates, and we were complaining about how like the Boy Scouts get to do all these fun outdoor things and we don't. And so my mom talked to the leader and was like, maybe we should do more outdoor, like, because we would just do crafts.
Yes. Fucking crafts. One time we went and got our hair done at a salon.
Whoa, we didn't do that. We just did crafts in the rectory basement.
We were in like the upstairs of the rectory, or sometimes in the rectory basement also. My mother was also an assistant troop leader. Yeah. This is very similar experiences.
So, and we sold cookies. That was obviously a big part of it.
Yeah.
Which does teach transferable, relatable skills. So maybe it's not a common criticism levied against the Girl Scouts organization, but it was also something that I experienced as a Girl Scout that some of us were flummoxed by.
And I imagine it depends on the troop too, and like where you located. Like certainly there were places that we could have gone camping, but it's not like we were living in the Rocky Mountains. We were living 45 minutes north of Chicago, 45 minutes south of Milwaukee. Not exactly in the wilderness. But anyway, I still had fun in Girl Scouts.
Yeah, me too. I hung out with my friends. There was good snacks.
Yeah. And the crafts were fun. I liked crafting. I liked doing crafts.
We also would have guest speakers sometimes
Mm.
come. I don't remember what they talked about, but I know they came.
There was like some drama in my Girl Scout troop though. I do remember.
Between girls or parents?
I think between the parents. I don't want
Ooh,
to speak for my mother, but I
juicy.
think that there was like contention, and I felt like the other troop leaders like took it out on me, and they were mean to me sometimes. My mom said she got there, she was like later to the meeting, whatever, she got off work, she came, and we were already meeting because it was just after school. And I was like in the corner crying because the troop leaders were really mean to me. And I do remember why, though. We were playing telephone.
Mm-hmm. Classic game.
Yeah. And it was my turn to pick the phrase that went around. And I said something along the lines of, I love my vagina, because
This makes sense.
this is like the second or third grade, and my mother is a nurse. And so she taught us like the biological terms for our body parts.
Which is important to do
Yeah, it's very
when
important.
kids are young.
It's very important. And so it's something that I was like, I have this knowledge now, I'm going to share it. Vagina like wasn't a bad word in my house. They didn't like that. So I got in trouble. And yeah, I don't know. I still had a good time at Girl Scouts though.
Oh my gosh. Did you get, on the day you had Girl Scout meetings, did you get to wear your uniform to school?
Yes, it was so exciting.
fun.
Because you're at a Catholic school, so that you're already wearing a uniform, but then like, so you really stand out, you know? Everyone knows you're a brownie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you have a vest or a sash?
I had a vest.
When I was a brownie, I had a vest. And then when I leveled up to, is it cadet? Is that what it's called when you wear the green?
I don't know.
I think I did Girl Scouts through 5th or 6th grade. And so when I leveled up to the green, I started wearing the sash instead of the vest. Because if I remember correctly, the sash was more popular. And I was like, I want to be like everyone else and wear the sash instead of the vest. Even though the vest was more practical.
The vest was pretty cool. I never made it past a brownie Girl Scout. So, because then I went to public school, and then I would have to find a new troop, and I was too shy, you know.
Yeah.
But
yeah, our troop just kind of disbanded because I don't even know why, but we were all kind of over it. A girl I used to babysit, though, I think she's in college now. Oh my goodness. But she was super active in Girl Scouts through high school, and she reached the highest level. And I think at that point, it really becomes about doing community service and stuff like that. So I'm not trying to say that Girl Scouts is all like, doing crafts is fun. I'm not saying that's not fun. But I think there is an emphasis on evolving and growing as the Scouts get older. So I just never reached that point.
yeah, me either. I also know some people who were in, you know, the Scouts, involved in the Scouts for many, many years, and like really did some things like traveling and camping. And as I was watching this film, I was like, oh yeah, like, so these factions, you know, of different troops. I was like, I had never really thought about that, but my Girl Scout experience happens to be very similar to Marin's, but that's anecdotal, right? Every troop is so different. I mean, based on like geography and socioeconomics, obviously that's very apparent in Troop Beverly Hills. Just like the general interests of everyone involved. And I think that that's something that makes the organization special, right? They're coming together under this shared desire to empower girls. But there are an infinite number of ways in which that can happen, depending on who you are, which I think is at the core of this film.
Right.
Really, is the lesson we learn.
Yeah. And Girl Scouts was also my avenue into this film because when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, I cannot remember which, my troop was going to take a camping trip. Okay. We're going to take a camping trip to Camp Maha, which was a Girl Scout campsite, maybe 30 or 45 minutes outside of Omaha. And they did weekly summer camps in the summer. So there were a few summers where I would do like a week-long day summer camp there. And so I would meet Girl Scouts from other schools, and we were outside all day. They had a pool. We'd look at scat, all the great stuff. But during the like non-summer months, troops could also rent out spaces to do camping there. And so we rented the like big cabin. I don't remember what it was. I think it was called the Lodge, actually. We were not camping, really. We were going to be sleeping in this lodge in sleeping bags on the floor. And obviously we would cook hot dogs and s'mores or whatever outside, and we could do hikes and stuff. So it wasn't totally devoid of outdoor activities, but we were not going to be like roughing it in tents in the middle of the woods. We would be sleeping in this lodge. And so the whole troop would be there, and then our leader, and then my mom, who was the assistant leader, and I think there were maybe one more parent was gonna help chaperone. And my mom had this idea of, oh, what if we showed the girls like to help them unwind at night? Because you know how it is when there's 20 girls or whatever trying to sleep in one room. It's they're unstoppable. And so my mom was like, maybe if we show them like a movie to help them unwind, because there is a TV in there. And my mom was like, oh, I remember this movie that I saw that was about like a Girl Scout troop, and it was Troop Beverly Hills. My mom was like, I'll watch it to make sure that it's okay. This movie is rated PG. There is quite a bit of innuendo in it, though. Some of which I realized definitely just went over my head when I was a child, which is fine. That's what it's supposed to do. But I remember my mom getting the DVD from Blockbuster and being like, we're going to watch this. And if we like it, we're going to watch it on your camping trip with your Girl Scout troop, and we'll all watch it together. And so we watched it and we loved it. And so then we watched it on this camping trip to Camp Maha. My whole Girl Scout troop watched Troop Beverly Hills together, and I think we had a good time. I also have a very vivid memory. This is a major digression, but it was part of that trip, so I just need to say it. I have this memory of people gossiping in the bathroom, and this one girl, or maybe not, gossip might not even be the right word, because we weren't talking about other people. We were just talking about stuff. And this one girl was like, when you have sex, you pee yourself.
Wait, what grade was this?
I think it was 2nd or 3rd grade. She was like, yeah, you pee when you have sex. And we were all like, ew, that's so gross. I never want to have sex. That's nasty. And I to this day, I think about that and I'm like, what exactly was she referring to? Was she referring to just the act of vaginal lubrication and thinking that was pee? Or was she referring to squirting and thinking that's pee? I still don't fully know what she meant. But that memory is conflated with also being introduced to Troop Beverly Hills.
I like that you remember that. I imagine probably she had a parent who did pee themselves maybe during sex, especially like after you have a kid. It's not really uncommon to pee during sex. Even if you haven't had a child, like that can happen. I just imagine she overheard her mom say it. Sometimes I pee during, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're talking, and then she remembered that. And it could be something else, right? She could have been referring to lubrication or something. But if you have a vulva and all of the parts inside of it, that can happen.
It was
I feel like I really went on for that.
No.
I was just like really interested.
I mean,
This child's perspective.
That's a good point, because we were all totally like, oh, okay, she must be right.
Yeah.
She was saying this thing that none of us had ever considered. So we were like, oh my God, what?
I feel like she was out there like telling her mom's business.
Maybe.
I really feel like, because kids do that.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
So I watched this movie with all my friends, and then we talked in the bathroom about how you go pee during sex. And that was my camping trip when I was a Girl Scout.
I freaking love that so much. And it also makes me think of the movie Baby Girl.
Yes.
Because there's that scene where she's like, I don't want to pee.
She is on the verge of orgasm and she thinks she's going to pee.
I imagine, especially as you get older, and prolapse is very common. Because we just have holes and like things could fall out of them. And yeah.
Great times. And then I did become obsessed with this movie, and I remember rewatching it quite a lot for about a year. and I had no sense of how it was received during its initial release. I was just like, oh, this is a movie I was shown that I like, so therefore it's good. Which, spoiler, this movie was not well received critically or commercially. It was a box office bomb.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. And it might be the worst reviewed movie we've talked about so far. If you're just aggregating positive versus negative reviews from professional film critics.
Wow.
There are things about it, when I look at the cultural context, I can be like, okay, it makes sense why critics would shit all over this movie. But I was kind of in the bag for it the second the opening credits started with the little animated
So weird.
hand-drawn animated scenes with this Beach Boys song playing over them, and it's full of color and it's silly and it's kind of weird, and I was like, oh, this is what pleasure feels like. That's not to say this movie is perfect. It has some very casually racist moments, which feel very on brand for a movie of this era, but there were some scenes when they started, my eyes sort of popped out of my head like I was a cartoon character, because I was like, oh, I don't remember this. Like Shelley Long just casually wearing a Native American headdress for an extended amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And the longer it went on, the more I was like, oh my God, this is not ending.
Mm-hmm.
But I think those things are definitely worth considering and should be considered. But I still think overall this movie it's fun and it's sweet. And I enjoyed it a lot. How do you feel?
There were very glaring racist moments and comments, and I definitely have some criticism for sure in terms of that. And I really hate it when they're like at that gala and the husband, what's his name? Ned. He's like, I'm very, very proud of you.
Fred.
Fred. Yeah, it's Fred. Because she even says like something about Freddie and the Freddie.
They call him Freddie. Yeah, do the Freddie.
Yeah.
I was thinking, Ned from Nancy Drew. Different terrible.
Don't bring him back.
Terrible guy. Yes, they're at the gala and Fred is there.
And Fred's like, I'm very, very proud of you. You've grown so much. She's so infantilized in that moment and repeatedly. Just because she liked shopping.
Yeah.
All of those things exist. But I was expecting there to be a lot more of those moments where I was distracted by the problematic nature of what the characters were saying or doing. I thought there were going to be a lot more for 1989. If the criticism was about that,
which it wasn't,
I can imagine it wasn't, then that I would understand. But otherwise, what is the criticism about?
Well, do I have a dossier for us? I dug into the archives and was like, okay, what were the major outlets? What were the major outlets that gave this negative reviews? What were some of them saying? So I have a select few to read, some of which are excerpts, and then one review that was truly so unhinged, I have the entire thing.
Okay.
So I guess I'll just start with the first one I have. This is from Michael Wilmington, who wrote for the Los Angeles Times. And he said, this is just an excerpt of his review. What can you say about a movie that purports to satirize, however gently, the lifestyles of the rich and jaded, and winds up dragging in Robin Leach, Pia Zadora, and a charity fashion show? What about a high concept which wants us to react to these super rich children as if they were waifs besieged by an evil world of Kmart crazed bullies and sadists?
What?
So basically the gist that I make of this incredibly verbose section full of rhetorical questions is he thinks the movie is trying to satirize the rich and wealthy of Beverly Hills, but is also asking us to sympathize them at the same time and is therefore an utter and abject failure. And that idea came up in a couple of these reviews of this notion of satire versus sincerity. I'm very intrigued by that. because I don't think this movie is trying to satirize them. I think the movie is very aware of the ways in which these people are ridiculous
Mm-hmm.
and doesn't shy away from that. But I don't know. I wasn't watching this movie like all these fucking rich people need to die and experience their comeuppance because they're so evil. And it seems like that's what a lot of these people wanted the movie to be. But then that makes me consider, okay, why don't I feel more disdain for these rich people? And then I don't know. What do you think?
I can understand what he's saying, even though he's what a fucking esoteric, like, get over yourself, buddy. Maybe erudite is a better term. But it does seem like the way that he's written it, if you're going to use that kind of language to talk about elitism, I think that you're an asshole. I find it obnoxious.
It is obnoxious.
And I'm not like a true Beverly Hills stan by any means. I think that, as you said, in a fucking normal human way, what he was actually trying to talk about is this issue of like class and our ability to empathize with the super wealthy. And why should we be expected to do that is valid. But I don't fucking care about that much.
I don't
Watching
either.
this
I don't
movie.
either. I think you put it best in that I just sort of don't care. Because I was thinking about the characters in this movie, and Phyllis's biggest flaw, as filtered to us through her husband, is that she shops too much and she has squandered all her creativity. And he tells her that she starts things all the time and then never finishes them. And so her volunteering to lead this troop and actually seeing them through and helping the troop grow and evolve, like, that's a big step for her, we're led to think. But like I've said already, she's not financially irresponsible with her shopping. She has a good relationship with her daughter. It's not like she decides to become this troop leader in order to salvage her relationship with her daughter. She's not trying to prove anything to her daughter by doing this. Her daughter's just excited that her mom is doing this with her. And when the girls express dissatisfaction with the state of their troop, and they're like, we're kind of the joke of the whole wilderness girls. No one thinks we can do anything. All these other troops have all these patches. We want to earn patches too. Phyllis is immediately like, okay, let's do this. And then they embark on that journey together. And so even at the start of the movie, when we're meant to think she's like flighty and vacuous or whatever, she's really not. She has a good relationship with her child. She's polite to the people who work in her house. She has friends. She's friends with the romance novelist lady whose daughter is friends with her daughter and is also in the troop. I was just kind of like, this is a lovely woman who has kooky fashion sense. Could I be friends with her? I don't know. Just because we come from such different worlds. And maybe that's just the charm and finesse of Shelley Long in this movie, who I think is so funny. I was just on her side from the get-go. And maybe that's subjective. But I think the movie writes her and the girls to be likable. Because some of these reviews are like, all these girls are just little snobs, and why should we be subjected to them? And I'm like, where did you get that from? Obviously, some of them are out of touch because they are all really rich. But they do show themselves to have heart and their own unique interests and talents.
I would agree with that. I do think it's annoying when a movie is about humanizing rich people. I don't actually think that that's what this movie is about.
Yes,
that's my whole like annoyance with this argument. Besides how far his head up is up is up his ass, Mr. Whatever his face is that wrote that review. And I'm thinking about this in terms of especially the antagonist, who is Velda.
Velda Plender.
So yeah, Velda wants to see Shelley Long's character, Phyllis, Velda wants to see Phyllis fail.
Right.
Not because she's rich, but because she's embodying this version of womanhood that Velda thinks is weak.
Exactly.
And I think that's actually an interesting conversation. And I think that that is how and why this movie does endear itself to me. Because that's a more interesting storyline than it's like, oh, let's humanize these rich people. Okay, nobody wants to do that, but the movie doesn't want us to do that.
Yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head perfectly. Because the other important thing about Phyllis's character is that she doesn't ever look down on Velda for Velda's own expressions of femininity or Velda's socioeconomic status, which we don't really know what it is. She has a job in the wilderness girls and she leads her troop. We don't ever see where she lives, so I don't know what her life is like. But yeah, I think the movie is much less about humanizing rich people, like you said, and it's just more about accepting women, how women inhabit their femininity and then express it, just accepting that we can do that in a multitude of different ways, and it doesn't have to be that deep. It doesn't always have to mean a whole lot of stuff, which I think is a perfectly good message for a children's film. Let's also keep in mind this is a PG movie that was targeted for families. And I think when it comes to conversations about womanhood and girlhood that are being targeted at girls specifically, like I think this movie's having a pretty nuanced conversation. More nuanced than I would necessarily expect for a family film. Because the reason that people don't take Troop Beverly Hills seriously is because they really like fashion and they all have long, big hair and they don't know how to pitch a tent or whatever. So therefore they can't learn. You know? Looking at the response in 1989, I think a lot of it is people just not seeing. They were just seeing an entirely different movie than the one that you and I saw. And I don't think the movie they were seeing exists. I really don't.
And I'm thinking, like, you can really like hone in on some things. There definitely is a valid argument in discussing the problematic nature of some of the classist comments that are made in the film.
Yes.
For sure. Velda always tells the assistant troop leader that she'll end up working back at Kmart if she doesn't do what she says. Mm-hmm. And there's that really horrible comment that Phyllis makes when they're on the boat about wine in like the hobo stew. It's horrible. This is actually a really terrible thing to say. And again, though, I think that the comedy in this film is flawed at times, but I don't think the message is. And I feel like they were a lot of these reviews, you haven't read me others, but if you're they're in the same vein, are focused on the nature of specific jokes instead of what is the message at the root of this movie, right? In the end, Phyllis is like, I used to think that money was the most important thing, and now I know that it's not true. One of the girls, she's in this world where everybody is rich, but she doesn't actually have money.
Right. Her dad is a struggling actor, so they don't have money. And when Phyllis says something about she needs all the girls to bring a couple dollars to pay for their patches, she storms out because she doesn't have the money. And then one of the other girls covers for her.
My brain, because also while I was watching this, I'm like, okay, they're wealthy. And I think I use the term super wealthy during this conversation, but I actually wouldn't consider them to be uber wealthy.
No one is a billionaire.
That is exactly my thought. The wealth gap in 2025 is so much bigger now. I don't know the actual numbers. I'm not an economist, but we all know it's bad. In 1989, things were better in terms of what you could afford. These critics are watching this film and looking at these characters and thinking they're so rich, fuck them. But billionaires didn't exist then in the way that they exist now.
Right.
And so we're watching this movie with a fucking oligarchy, a tech bro oligarchy running the United States of America. And I'm like, Phyllis is probably a millionaire, but honestly, we should all be fucking millionaires. There's enough money in this country for that. So I do wonder if the economic state of the United States of America has something to do with our different relationship to this movie and these characters in terms of their wealth.
I don't consider myself super well versed in like Reaganomics and the first Bush era or whatever, but this movie would have come out when George H.W. Bush was president. We just stewed in 8 years of Reagan.
Yeah.
And then the conservative streak continued with Bush. I can imagine that the New York film critic intelligentsia had very negative feelings about that political era. And I would be interested in someone who knows a lot about that political and economic era. What kind of reading would they give this movie? But I can't do that reading, so.
I can't either. I mean, I did with what little knowledge I have. Just thinking. It's just a theory. We had these 8 years of Reagan and he did horrible things, but it had only been 2 terms of that. The real damage of his policies, we're really seeing that now. I'm not saying it wasn't happening then, but we're really living in fucking Reaganomics. He made it possible. He's the original Make America Great Again.
Yeah.
So I can see why critics would want to rail against someone as horrible as him.
Yeah. I couldn't find anyone that explicitly mentioned Reagan, but I was just thinking about it. I also want to read an excerpt from Roger Ebert, who I have quoted on this podcast before, who he's saying a similar thing to Michael Wilmington, but because Roger Ebert was not someone I would say who had his head up his ass, he says it much more normally. This was, of course, from the Chicago Sun-Times. He says, if this movie had been a satire, it could have been deadly. Unfortunately, the story turns out to have a heart of gold. Instead of being a merciless evisceration of the lifestyle of the rich, it's a little morality play in which Long transforms herself into a warm and useful person. Nobody within a mile of this project seems to have possessed an ounce of irony. He gave it 2 out of 4 stars. So not a total pan, but not positive.
So it's the sincerity that he doesn't like.
Yeah.
And I think that is a very fair review because it's the sincerity that I do like about it. Everything that he is criticizing about that film is what makes it likable to me. And that's okay.
I was also thinking about this, and I haven't formulated a super intricate argument yet, but I also think the class dynamics in this movie are much more palatable to me. One, because, like you mentioned, wealth distribution was different back then, and no one in here is a fucking tech billionaire. But I think also the fact that this movie exists in a world that is pre-internet and pre-social media just automatically makes it refreshing. So therefore, that makes me softer towards everyone. Because now so much of our exposure to people who are extremely wealthy comes through the internet. And that's also a means by which people make themselves extremely wealthy now. Like if you made this movie now with the exact same premise, these girls would be 12 years old, like selling skincare products on TikTok or whatever. And I would hate them. I would be like, oh my God, these little shits need to get off my screen. But because that's not the world that this movie was made in. Yes, they're rich girls. One of them is a child actress. One of them is, when she shows up to the first meeting, she's in a little equestrian uniform, which is a sport that has its roots in being very, very wealthy. One of them's the daughter of a film director. One of them's the daughter of a famous boxer. They're still around rich and famous people all the time. They don't know a world that's not like that. So I can only assume they're all kind of out of touch in some way. But because none of that is being filtered through technology or social media in any way, they're also still rooted in the real world. they're still just sitting around in a circle talking about their actual feelings, or they're trying to go camping, even if it's not like a total success. But that still ends up being a bonding experience. And I feel like I have a sense of who these girls are and what their struggles are, because their one unified struggle is that they all feel bad that their troop isn't taken seriously and they want to be taken seriously. And that's a very universal desire to have, especially as you're coming of age, is wanting to be taken seriously. So they're so relatable in that way. I'm just not going to dwell on what kinds of women these girls grew into and how that was shaped in by their privileged childhoods. It's just really interesting to think about how, if you're going to make a contemporary movie now, even if the internet isn't central to the plot, characters are still walking around with smartphones, you know, and you're just aware of that ecosystem is shaping all our brains in some way, blah, blah, blah. And that's not here in this movie. And I think that is a big part of why I was just like, I'm just happy to be here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because something I was thinking too as I was watching this is that people look different. They have different looking faces.
Yep.
And, you know, even when Shelley Long's character is talking shit about that woman that Fred starts to date,
she makes fun of her for allegedly having a boob job.
We're just meant to think that she has had all this work done, right? She still looks like a real fucking human person. As I was watching it, I just kept thinking about the Kardashians
exactly.
And how like creepy. They actually look creepy to me. You don't look real anymore. It's fucking weird. And I won't go on a choice feminism rant because I've already done that in another episode. I believe in one of the Twilight episodes. So if you really want to hear me rant about that, you can go listen to that episode. But I'm only bringing that up because it's like, no, it's not anti-feminist or like anti-woman for me to say that the Kardashians look fucking weird. They're no longer fully human. When you have that much work done, you are a creation.
Oh, yeah, that's a good word.
Right? Like of whatever plastic surgeon you go to.
Mm-hmm. And I think what you're getting at here with this observation about physical aesthetics and what you were saying earlier about the different economic landscape, we can watch this movie with the knowledge of how much worse it has gotten since this movie came out. Whereas critics watching it in 1989, they didn't know just how bad it was going to get. And that's sort of a conversation that people have a lot about movies now, with the reassessment of movies from years ago that were not well received and now have received a lot of reappraisal or have developed a cult following. Is sometimes it is this genuine understanding of like artistry or thematic heft that we didn't see the first time. But sometimes also it's just, guys, the industry is so fucking bleak right now that we have to like acknowledge this for what it is, because it's so much worse now. But I think that is also just a part of it. To really simplify it, is we can watch this movie knowing how much worse things have gotten politically, economically, with regards to how we talk about women's appearances and the expectations that are thrust upon us, and how technology is also playing into that and propagating those ideas. And yeah, because I was also struck by how unique each of these girls look. I could tell them all apart. And some of that has to do with they have different hair color, there's different skin tones, but also they just like all have their own unique facial features and styling choices and all these things that are going into building their characters. And I'm not around kids a lot, so I don't know, but maybe you could speak to that more than I could since you're a high school teacher. This sense of individuality that I see in the girls in this movie, does that exist anymore for young people?
I don't think that it's everybody dresses the same or has
That's
the
good.
same sense of, yeah, it's
I'm
not
glad to
like
hear
that. What is interesting to me is that every era of fashion is happening at once. So like you find your little niche on in the algorithm of the type of fashion that you like. You like the 90s, you like the 80s, you like the set, right? You like the early aughts. And that's how you're dressing. So walking down the hallways, you will see a student who looks like they just walked out of 1985, and then you'll see a student who thinks it's 2002. And I kind of love it. I love that it's just like happening all at once, because there's a real freedom in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I find myself like dressing in these very different ways, just depending on how I feel, like from these different eras. That's what I see. I mean, again, it's anecdotal, but that's what I'm saying. But I do think if an iteration of this movie was made now, I probably wouldn't be able to tell a lot of the characters apart. They'd have them all dressed the same, doing the same. And maybe I live in a specific socioeconomic status. And so maybe if I went to a high school in Beverly Hills right now, that is what you would find, though, is everybody looking exactly the same, because people are getting plastic surgery younger and younger. We have 17-year-olds or maybe younger, I don't know, getting Botox, right? We do have teenagers getting Botox. Not really in my area, in places where they have more money for that. It's like, can I have Botox for my birthday? What the fuck?
And I think something else that I'm just now thinking about is I've read some articles written by journalists and whatnot talking about how tween, obviously as an age, being tween still exists because it's an age, but as like a cultural and economic market, tween doesn't really exist anymore. And I thought that was so fascinating because when was this last year? I don't know, but people were freaking out because there were 12-year-olds going to Sephora and buying really harsh skincare products and talking about how they were treating their acne with it or whatever. And then dermatologists were replying and be like, you should be using soap and water. And people were sort of analyzing it and seeing how that was an example of this disappearance of this tween era, where they're not quite full teen, bordering on adult yet, but they're not little girls anymore either. I think of the store Limited 2, which I think then became Justice, which I don't even know if that exists anymore. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I had a bunch of clothes from there. And it was a store designed for that exact age group. If you were 10 to 14, that was the place to shop. You go to the mall with your mom, you pick out some skirts and some tops, and they're cute. And it's like a way for you to sort of get a sense of your personal style, but everything is age appropriate, nothing is too mature, but it's also not babyish anymore either. And the point I'm trying to get at is just this movie, I think, is an example of a tween movie that doesn't really get made very often anymore. A movie that's not quite young adult, but it's not a straight up G-rated kids movie. It's designed for that middle space of audience. And that, again, makes me feel softer for it, just because I know we don't get this kind of thing anymore. And I think we should, because there are still 11-year-olds who exist and want to be entertained and want to learn about the world. I guess what I'm getting at is that a lot of my affection for this movie is maybe distorted by nostalgia, but I don't think that's a bad or delusional thing, because that nostalgia is also rooted in this stark acknowledgement of what reality is like right now.
Yeah, no, I think that's well put. And I think you're totally right. I think that the way that I feel towards this movie, like why I am willing to champion it against that horrible review, is because of the sense of the nostalgia. And I had never really thought about this period of time that's being disappeared. There's so much growing up that happens in that time period. And for me, at 10 years old, I was still playing with dolls and Barbies sometimes. Right. I didn't necessarily want people to know I was doing that, but I was. And I was still engaging in a lot of imaginative play, for sure, even as I went into 11 years old. And then I was 12 and I got my period. And my interest in those things did just drop off. It wasn't because I felt pressured to not play with them anymore. Although I'm sure that was there, but I was no longer interested. And not because my period came, I'm not saying that, but it was a very formidable moment in time. I had to think about, am I bleeding on a chair? Like, it adds this different element to your everyday life that doesn't go away for decades and decades. Had I skipped that, I can't imagine like skipping that period of time. It would have been so jarring to going from imaginative play to, Mom, can I have Botox? And probably those things are happening at the same time, right? Still wanting to play with dolls at the same time, thinking, oh, I want to look like a Kardashian. And that's possible if I have enough money to get somebody to carve my face up.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly how I want to make the connection, but to me, this sort of like absence of tweenness that we're discussing, skipping this part of development, and that could happen in different ways. I'm not saying like everybody played with dolls. I'm specifically talking about where your primary source of entertainment is through imaginative play. And then you start to recognize that you inhabit this body that has sexual like desires, right? That's what tweenness is. And that's what makes it so confusing. And skipping that developmental period, I feel like makes you more susceptible to the trad wife movement.
Say more.
I'm trying to sort it out. I'm thinking specifically about the alt-right magazine, Evie magazine.
I don't know what this is.
I'm kind of obsessed with it. I can only look at like one article a day because otherwise it makes you sign up. It's free to sign up, but I'm like, I can't have you guys sending shit to my inbox. I'm afraid of my brain being infiltrated. So Evie magazine it's been described as a conservative Cosmo. And aesthetically, it's very visually appealing. It's very modern. It's sleek. It's pretty. It's soft. It's feminine. And it's fucking horrible. I wrote about it this week in my Substack post. I've been writing little essays every week. I haven't posted it yet because this one got a little too long. Anyway, what I wrote about actually was that when I first happened upon Evie magazine, I don't know how, I don't know where, it took me a minute or two to realize it was alt-right propaganda because of its aesthetics. I'm a very discerning person when it comes to what I'm reading, but its job is to appeal to a brand of femininity that I was raised to try to aspire to. Even if I am pushing against that now, right? It's still rooted inside of me. And I have to constantly try to unlearn what I've learned. And I feel like in that developmental period, you figure out what your interests are in the real world, right? You were leaving behind imaginative play. It doesn't interest me anymore. I didn't want to play with dolls anymore. I didn't want to make up worlds between all my stuffed animals and have them like fucking in the streets, you know? So you have to start to look outward. And it's like, what are my interests in the real world? And this was happening for me in the year 2000. Actually, I turned 12 in the year 2000. And there wasn't this influx of information I was receiving where I could just like reach out and latch onto something that would tell me what I was. Like, I had to actually figure it out. I had to go out into the world and experience things. But I think that when we skip that stage, these girls are just turning to the internet to tell them what they're interested in or what kind of woman they want to be or can be. And if Evie magazine, if only for a moment, if only for 60 seconds, can confuse me, imagine what it can do to an 11-year-old girl. Yeah.
No, I think you're so right about this tween middle puberty phase being about discovering passions and interests that you're probably going to carry your whole life. Because I know that was true for me. And the value of the message of a movie like Troop Beverly Hills is I think a girl can watch it and maybe she won't be like, oh, I want to join Girl Scouts, or oh, I want to go camping, or oh, I want to learn about jewelry appraisal. But she will be presented with a group of girls who are discerning and honing their own individual and collective values. And so you can watch this movie and be like, oh, these girls are becoming more thoughtful, worldly people. Maybe that's the kind of person I want to become. But then it's up to them to decide how they act and live to embody that, right? Because the big finale of this movie is that they're at this jamboree, they're close to winning. Velda, the mean troop leader from the other troop, she sabotages their route so they get lost and then they have to cross this river and they have to do a bunch of problem solving to be like, how the fuck do we get out of this situation? And they manage to get through it. The Troop Beverly Hills manages to get through it. And then on their way to the finish line, they discover that Velda has injured herself and cannot walk. And because of this, her troop has just left without her, abandoned her in the woods because they want to win. And one of the girls in her own troop is her own daughter, who she's shitty to. But the daughter's like, I want to win. That's where my self-worth comes from, is winning this competition. And so the Troop Beverly Hills stumble upon Velda injured in the woods. And Phyllis is like, I really think we should help her. She's going to slow us down, but in order to inhabit the values of the Wilderness Girls, we should help our fellow Wilderness Girl and carry her to the finish line so she can receive medical attention or whatever. And the girls don't want to do it. They don't want to help her because they're like, she's mean to us. She's been mean to you. She sabotaged our whole event. She's trying to make it so we don't win, so we don't even finish. So we're the joke. We're still the joke. But Phyllis, she's the adult in the group. She does hold some power, but also she knows how to get through to them. So they arrive at their moral compasses and are like, okay, fine. And they use their little fashion backpacks to build a stretcher so they can carry Velda to the finish line. And they're still seen as the heroes because they still finished, they still succeeded, but then they also did the right thing, right? And I don't know, maybe some really cynical person would watch this and be like, you should have left Velda in the woods to die. I don't necessarily think that. What was my point? Oh, just that even girls watching this movie, they will probably never be in that exact scenario. But watching that scene unfold is going to instill them with some sense of morality that then they can take and express in their own lives in a variety of different ways. And I think that's the difference between something like a movie that is in conversation with the audience in a way and understands that it's up to the audience to take something away from it versus propaganda like Evie Magazine, which is just about catching you rather than opening you up to something else. Right?
No, I love the way that you put that. This film offers possibilities for girls to live into.
Mhm.
Evie offers a possibility that you must adhere to if you want to be the best version of a woman you cannot possibly be, you know?
Mm-hmm. I just like went to their website on my phone, and this headline, I'm not even going to click on the article, but just this headline is making me lose it. It's called The $1 Billion Power of Quiet Femininity: How Hailey Bieber Built Rhode, which is her beauty empire. Quiet femininity? Like Hailey Bieber wasn't a supermodel who comes from a famous entertainment family. It's not like she just emerged out of nowhere to be this quiet, perfect, feminine fairy and built a $1 billion company. Like, she comes from insane generational wealth. Then she married into more wealth, though my guess would be that she's probably the primary breadwinner in her marriage because based on the way Justin Bieber has been acting on the internet lately, I don't know what's going on. I'm not gonna make assumptions, but he seems unwell and she seems to be the one who's holding everything together. I'll just say that. And if he is unwell, I hope he can get the help he needs. But it's the quiet femininity in conversation with someone like Hailey fucking Bieber.
Yeah, dude. No, it's wild. And that shit it's all over. And some of it is really blatant. Like there's a very blatant anti-trans article that's like J.K. Rowling is using Harry Potter funds to keep men out of women's spaces or something like that. And when I came across it on Instagram, like it came up in my like in my algorithm. And I was like, Evie, what is this? You know? And then I started sort of, and just like to see it again, aesthetically, it's working well. I mean, dude, the alt-right women.
This is why the Republicans are succeeding where the Democrats are failing. It's staggering.
It's wild. And then as soon as like you start reading it, you're like, oh my God, Jesus Christ. It's really obvious to me that this is horrible. But the language they're using is so careful. It's scary.
Glad I know this exists. I firmly believe that we need to know about the bad things that exist. If you are one of those people who's like, I just don't want to think about any of it. Or you're like, I just don't want to think about any of it. It's too divisive. That is not the fucking way.
Also wild that you're listening to this podcast. How did you... Let us know. Drop in the comment. How did you stumble upon us if that's the case?
I make a lot of generalizations about social media and TikTok, which is maybe stupid considering I'm not on any of them. But if I'm wrong, you can correct me. But I feel like so much of social media culture now is just influencers trying to sell you stuff. So if you're an impressionable 11-year-old girl going through Instagram Reels or TikTok or whatever, and most of the content you're being inundated with is people who are full adults trying to sell you stuff, then you're just going to mistake consumerism for having a personality, which is something this movie directly addresses.
Yes.
Which is that consumerism cannot give you a personality or give you friends or give you family. And that at the end of the day, if someone values you only for your economic status, that person is not worth having in your life. This does raise the question, though, is Phyllis a trad wife? Because as far as like aesthetic and occupation, she fits the mold of being a trad wife. But as far as values go, I don't know.
I mean, I think this movie is definitely guilty of like the women can have it all, women can do it all brand of feminism, right? That was popular in that era. So I do think that she would be at least susceptible to joining that line of thinking, that cult. And I'm glad they brought that up, because one thing I did want to say, because I think I said at one point that I don't think that Phyllis is judging Velda because of the way Velda performs her gender. And I really don't think at the end of the day that is what Velda is concerned about when it comes to Phyllis. I think she's just like, you need to go out in the fucking woods, lady. That being said, I think you could make a very valid argument that Velda's character is queer coded.
Absolutely.
And she's being demonized for the way that she's performing a specific brand of like queerness. I really do think that's happening, and that the movie isn't aware of it.
I think the movie might be aware of it.
Yeah.
Just thinking about casual 80s homophobia.
You're right.
Like, I think they definitely were very specific of Velda is masculine or whatever adjective you want to use, and Phyllis is really feminine, and it's about this mannish woman demonizing this womanly woman. I think it's very specifically trying to mine comedy from that.
Maybe.
Which goes into what you said earlier, where you're like, I don't think this movie's message is flawed, but I think some of its comedy very much is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's happening. An argument can be made against the film.
Yeah.
For that reason.
I was also really confused about the girl, I wrote down all their names. Lily, she is Asian. Her parents are Asian. And everyone refers to her parents as Mr. and Mrs. Dictator. Presumably because they're dictators of another country, but they're living in the US. And then when I went on Wikipedia, so I don't know how verifiable this is, but it said that those characters were inspired by the president and first lady of the Philippines. It was an authoritarian regime, so they were essentially dictators. That's who that's based on. But I was like, why would the dictator of another country be living in the US? And then also it just feels weird to pigeonhole there are like two non-white girls in the troupe, and one of them, her whole personality is that her parents are dictators. It was really weird, and I didn't even fully understand what they were trying to accomplish.
That also really stood out to me because it's so casually racist, but also I lack the contextual knowledge.
Right. I don't understand geopolitics well enough to like
of the 80s,
try to grasp what is going on there.
Yeah.
But I was just like, logically, this joke doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because why would dictators of another country not be, or is that also part of the joke that like they're dictators who don't live in the country where they're ruling? I don't know. But they have a Beverly Hills address, otherwise their daughter could not be part of the troupe.
It made no sense to me. It was lacking in logic. It was racist and it didn't make any sense.
And there's obviously plenty of comedy in this movie that is very of its time. There are multiple celebrity cameos in this movie, some of which I got. Like, I know who Cheech Marin is. I know who Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is. But when Annie, the assistant troupe, is dancing with that guy he's like on General Hospital or whatever, I was like, I don't know who this man is, but I guess if you're watching it in 1989, you're all gonna know who he is. If Lily's parents are based on real life dictators in the Philippines of that era, that it might make more sense to people watching in 1989, but I don't know, and it still makes me feel weird.
Yeah.
I did have one more really wild review I wanted to read. And this is the one that's so unhinged, I kind of wanted to read the whole thing. This was written by Rita Kempley from the Washington Post. Troop Beverly Hills is a dog of a movie. One of those nasty little yappy dogs with fancy hairdos, pedicures, and pedigrees. Professional prisspot Shelley Long sets the tone down and out as a recently separated Rodeo Drive heroine. A flighty housewife, she has heretofore ignored her child to devote her life to shopping. But all that's about to change thanks to scouting. Okay, first I want to say, she doesn't ignore her child. I didn't get that read at all. There's no source of tension between the two of them because of something like that. Am I crazy for...
No, I didn't take her as negligent.
Continuing. The Girl Scouts, who know a varmint when they see one, obviously didn't want to sully their name, so these neurotics are called wilderness girls. The daughters of sports and movie stars, deposed dictators. Oh, maybe he's a former dictator. And now they live in the U.S.?
But then why would she call him Mr. Dictator?
Because that's his legacy? I don't know. If someone else understands this, let us know.
I think there's just something lost in the translation of decades.
Okay. The daughters of sports and movie stars, deposed dictators, and romance novelists, the little troopers are neglected by their busy parents and suffer low self-esteem. None of them is cute as a bug.
What?
The one girl does get upset because she knows that her family doesn't have money, the same money that everyone else does. But low self-esteem...
What was the last name? None of them is cute?
None of them is cute as a bug. And that's where
is she calling them ugly?
I think so. I think she's throwing ad hominem attacks at
child actors. Rita, get your shit together.
The 80s were so fucking weird, man. Okay. When the troop loses yet another leader, Hannah persuades her mother Phyllis to take the job. Despite the skepticism of her estranged husband and the villainy of Velda, a mannish regional director, Phyllis prevails. Writers Pamela Norris and Margaret Oberman, who should throw out their word processors, pens, and all other instruments for the recording of ideas, treat the filthy rich as if they were the homeless. Now it's the rich as a minority group. Pity the poor little Beverleys. Children from lower income groups laugh at their Giorgio boutique backpacks. Then Velda strips the girls of the badges they've earned for facials and pricing jewelry. She further derides them for holding their camp out at the Beverly Hills Hotel, where they tell horror stories about bad haircuts. Those plot details do happen, but I don't know, man. I don't know.
If someone gave me a fucking perm,
That scene is so funny.
okay, I would also scream. That sounds
scene-
terrifying.
That scene is hilarious when they're telling spooky stories. And she built it up so well. Phyllis does. She's like, I went to the salon and there was this new guy and his hands were so cold and da 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 da. And then the final nail in the coffin is, he permed me, and they all scream. And because perms are ugly and they look ridiculous.
It's interesting too because I feel like at that time period they were like just getting over perms.
I wouldn't know.
I think that was a thing of the early 80s.
Yeah. Okay. Aided by her daughter's red feather troop, the hairy-chested Velda plans to destroy the Beverleys. Which earlier when she said that the regional director is mannish, it felt like she was maybe critiquing the movie for that depiction, but then she doubles down on it by randomly calling Velda hairy-chested.
So Velda is definitely demonized for some brand of queerness that she's meant to represent.
Yeah. I think the movie is very much doing that, even if we don't see characters like Phyllis do it
right
explicitly.
Well, because Velda never talks about having a partner or like having a man.
I think she says she's widowed. She's like, I'm a widow, I'm a mother,
That's right.
But first and foremost, I'm a troop leader. That is the biggest part of her identity.
Yeah.
But she still feels very queer-coded. Okay. I love the smell of cookies in the morning, says Velda upon invading the Beverly's territory in a contest to sell the most boxes. But with pluck and vast amounts of cash, the girls rally the community, selling 4,000 worth of cookies at a fashion show. Also, Rita, you're spoiling the whole fucking movie in your review. Finally, the rivalry peaks at the Wilderness Girls Jamboree, where the children's survival skills are tested. Tricked by the red feathers, the brave Beverleys must walk across the creek on a log site the size of a sequoia. Woo, that was a close one. Then they run from a skunk and squeal at a snake. The fun just never stops. Have you seen snakes? They're scary. They're so scary. I saw the fattest, thickest rattlesnake in the woods one time, and it was terrifying. Unwarranted, I think it had just eaten, which was why its girth was so big, so it was like moving pretty slow, but I was like, you don't want to fuck with that bad boy. Okay. And she says, if this all sounds like the Revenge of the Nerds in reverse, there's good reason. Nerds director Jeff Canu is the man behind this wretched mediocrity, this flimsy waste of film. Dreadful as their performances are, the actors are the victims. Long, who played opposite Bette Midler in Outrageous Fortune, mimics the Midler wiggle in lieu of acting, another daffy dilettante from the Junior League School of Comedy. Just because Beverly Hills is part of the title, they think it's going to be a hit. This is Beverly Hills slop, and Long is no Eddie Murphy.
I think something that is interesting, though, thinking about the fact that this was directed by the same dude who directed Revenge of the Nerds, which is fucking horrible. It is like pretty horrifically misogynistic. And so I wonder if I had known that, if I would have had a different read.
I don't know. But this movie was written by two women.
Right.
And I don't know who wrote Revenge of the Nerds, but my guess would be it was a guy.
Yeah.
The thing that struck me most about this review was just the amount of vitriol in the prose. Trust me, I've gotten super pissed about a bad movie that I was subjected to before and ranted till the cows come home about it to anyone who would listen. But I just cannot fathom this specific movie creating this level of ire in another human being.
Or if it did, they're mad about the wrong things. You can get really mad about the racist and classist and misogynistic moments and jokes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not even what they're mad about.
No.
I actually can't really tell what she's mad about.
I just think
everything.
She thinks the whole thing is, she says it's a waste of film.
Her basically calling the child actors ugly.
Yeah, that's when you lose all credibility.
That's
with
a
me.
crazy fucking move, dude.
Yeah. I just think it's this different era of film criticism also where the brutality was just different. Which is not to say critics don't write pans anymore, because they certainly do. And sometimes I really enjoy reading them. It's just mean.
Yeah, it's not even criticism.
Yeah. This reads like what someone would post on Reddit in 2025.
Oh, you're right. And I love Reddit.
I love Reddit too, but
Yeah.
certain holes of Reddit are scary places. And some people feel too much freedom on there. So I don't know. I had to share this
That was fascinating.
because it was really fascinating to me.
I do wonder if I would have felt more negatively had I experienced this movie in real time in the context in which it was made. Because, okay, I'm thinking about it like compared to Miller's Girl, where there are something real at stake in terms of, what the damage of the message of that film. Where, again, I don't think the message of this film is inherently bad or flawed. Whereas with Miller's Girl, I think that was the case. And it was more recent film, so people are still watching it. Whereas this film, like, people aren't really watching it anymore unless they're going back to watch it for nostalgia's sake.
Yeah.
And I do think at its core, at its heart, it is sincere in just wanting to celebrate girls loving themselves, loving each other, and figuring out who they are and being compassionate and kind.
Amen. Maggie, what does this movie make you want to tell your younger self?
My very first thought is that it just makes me want to tell my younger self how lucky she is to have been able to experience the tween era of her life entirely sans social media. I was just living life. I was playing games. I was wearing horrible makeup because I didn't know how to do it. And all my friends were just figuring out how to do things. There were no YouTube videos, right? Figuring out how to put in a tampon the first time. I was reading the directions that came with the box because my mom didn't wear tampons, so she couldn't really teach me. I had one of my friends, I love this story, who she didn't know you were supposed to push the tampon out of the plastic applicator. She walked around all day with the plastic applicator, the whole thing. It was so painful.
That's when you get toxic shock syndrome.
Truly. But like, we had to have real conversations with each other. She had to be like, hey, I don't think I did this right. Is this supposed to feel like this? We were like, no, that's crazy. You were forced into community in order to grow up.
Right. Or you were forced into the bathroom at a camping trip to talk about things that maybe weren't true about what your vagina did during sex.
Yeah. And now we just Google everything, or we just ask ChatGPT. ChatGPT, how do I put in a tampon?
That's bad. Excuse me.
I bet that happens.
I know. Do you have anything else you want to add? I feel like I cut you off.
No, I really went on a tangent there a little bit, but that made me think of also something that I tell my students a lot. If you cannot do this, if you cannot ask each other for help, I don't know how you're going to be able to go to the grocery store. You're going to have to go to the grocery store. Okay, you want to order all your groceries online. Maybe somebody's going to send you the wrong thing. You're going to have to fix that error. Or you're going to ignore that error. You're going to have to call the fucking doctor. You have to go to the doctor. You have to learn how to have these conversations. And so I just feel really lucky that I grew up in a time where like I was selling Girl Scout cookies door to door, and it was fucking terrifying for me as a very shy child. But that's just a part of living and being a human on the earth. That's all.
This movie makes me want to tell my younger self that her mom is doing so much shit for her. Not just helping with my Girl Scout troop, but helping me sell cookies, driving me to dance lessons, giving me the freedom to run around my neighborhood and trusting me to like do that. As an adult now, trying to imagine myself with a kid doing all the things that my mom did for me, I don't think I could do it. And I think this movie honors the things that moms do for their kids. Like, I love when all the parents come to the cookie meeting and they're strategizing for how they're going to sell cookies so their daughters can participate in the jamboree. It's so sweet. I don't care that they're delusional rich people. It's just sweet. They care about their kid. So thanks, Mom, for being my Girl Scout co-leader and sewing patches on my vest. I remember her actually showing me how to do it. She brought out the sewing kit and was like, here's how you do it. So that way, it alleviated some labor on her end, which I fully support. But then it was also teaching me a skill.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie makes me appreciate all of that she did. For sure.
Very sweet. Does your mom listen to the podcast?
No.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't know what podcasts are. I've tried explaining to her. She just thinks it's YouTube. And I'm like, no, it's not YouTube. It's something else.
I love that.
She loves home decor stuff and refurbishing antiques and that kind of thing. She watches a lot of YouTubers who do that. She's like, so is it like, and then she names some YouTubers she watches who refinishes old dressers or whatever. And I'm like, no, it's not like that.
I love that for her. Stay that way.
Yeah.
What a wonderful life.
It was pretty wholesome. I should tell her that we talked about this movie though. Then maybe she'd listen.
Mm.
I could find a way to send her a link that would work for her so she wouldn't have to download Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
How would she feel about the F word? Gratuitous use of it?
She wouldn't love it, but I haven't said her least favorite swear, which involves God's name. So I think it'd be okay. Alrighty. If your mom did cool shit for you when you were a kid, say thanks. Thank you for listening. Rate, review, subscribe, turn on post notifications, etc., 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 etc. We would appreciate if you did that. Thank you.
You can follow us on Instagram at Girlhood Movie Database. You can follow me on Instagram at _Saint_Margaret_.
You can email us at girlhoodmoviedatabase@gmail.com.
Yes.
And all that information will be in the show notes below. And next episode, we're discussing a movie that Maggie has picked.
It's called Girls Will Be Girls. It came out in 2024. And it won a specific award that Marin was aware of.
Yes. And I got excited about when I saw it because I was like, oh, that's cool. It won the John Cassavetes Award at the Independent Spirit Film Awards, which is a special award given to a film with a budget under $1 million. Thank you so much. Remember the Wilderness Girls motto, be kind to small animals, always put out campfires, and when in doubt, charge it. But not so much that you get into debt. Not that it's always someone's fault if they get into debt because credit card companies are predatory entities. But
true, system is stacked against us for sure.